Welcome back, Troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we have a really rare finish on a Les Paul Custom. The official title of this finish is Charcoal Metallic, and almost nobody ever gets that right. They call this finish Gunmetal Gray, because that is a much cooler sounding name, but as these things age, similar to a silver burst, they turn green. This is actually one of my favorite 80s colors on a Les Paul Custom. Now let's do a little bit of background here. The mid to late 80s wasn't necessarily a good time for sales for Gibson, and they actually ended up having to sell the company to its current owner, so I'm guessing they decided to try some new exotic finishes in this era to kind of help boost sales. Now, one of these days, I need to sit down and just compile a complete list of all the custom finishes of this era. But from what I could remember right now, there's Pearl White, which is basically your traditional Alpine white, but it has some sparkle to it. Ferrari Red. Silver, the official title called Pewter. Purple Burst, I haven't found on a custom yet, but you can find some studios with that. The very rare and elusive Gold/Harvest Burst, Bahama Blue, and finally Charcoal Metallic. The thing with this finish is it is nearly impossible to find in a collectible condition. Usually you will find the finish is just completely worn off the back of the neck of these guitars. Because let's face it, this is a really cool finish, and people who owned them usually played the crap out of them. The other thing you'll find is that they're all routed for Kahlers, or they came from the factory with them. I don't care, factory Kahler or not, the value of that guitar is just in the dumpster. It's kind of been a holy grail search here to find a charcoal metallic that A, wasn't desecrated with a Kahler, and B, does not have the finish worn off the neck or anywhere else on the body. This finish is so hard to find, I actually kind of settled for a different example a year or so ago that had the finish worn off the neck. This finish was produced from 1985 into early 1987. There were not a lot of them made, so that also adds to the fact that these things are just incredibly difficult to find in clean shape. Notable users of these guitars from the 85 to 87 era in this color is Bill Kelleher from Mastodon. That guy has a lot of signature guitars from Gibson with the Golden Axe Explorer and the Halcyon Les Paul. I'm wondering if he got that idea from the Harvest Gold Burst Customs. And he also has ESP signature guitars with a non-reverse Firebird shape and a Les Paul that are done in military green, and I'm pretty sure that it is this guitar where he got that love for that finish from. Now, Mike Sullivan from Russian Circles, he's another one that uses this, and I almost think it's his main guitar. I don't know a lot about Bill or Mike, but if you type in Mike Sullivan Russian Circles, the first thing you see is him with this guitar. Interviews with this colored guitar. I think he's the biggest player of one of these. So, it's a really cool finish. I thought I'd try to play some metal on this. I gotta tell you, this is a fantastic playing guitar despite having some fret wear. It sounds great for grungy metal tones. And a lot of that is inspired by this dark silvery finish. I mean, take a close-up look here. Charcoal metallic really is the best way to describe the finish because it's kind of a charcoal colored with some sparkle to it, as the name implies, and then it turns green as the clear coat ages. Besides the finish, it's just your average 80s custom. You've got your Tim Shaw PAFs, maple top, with traditional weight-relieved mahogany back and mahogany neck with an ebony fretboard. I played this thing for about 5 hours. If I don't stop playing it, I'm gonna be the one that wears the finish off the neck. I can understand why that happens on all of these. So I'm gonna place this thing back in the case after this because I don't want to damage it. But let's go ahead and hear how this guitar sounds. know how this guitar sounds, let's go ahead and review its condition. This has to be the cleanest charcoal metallic I've ever ran across. That doesn't mean it's mint condition, it just means everything is intact and it's original for the most part with only a few exceptions. Now the lacquer has aged quite a bit on this example. You can see that on the headstock, that golden hue it's turned, but you just have some light scratches on the headstock from changing strings and whatnot. Nothing too bad. The truss rod works the way it should, has plenty of adjustment room, and you still have your original nut yet. Now the frets on this guitar, I'm not gonna lie, they're worn, but they're not like big divots. It's just the frets have been flattened all the way up the neck. So this was definitely a lead guitar player's. Now, as it is right now, you can definitely play it. You just kind of get some light fret buzzes here or there. Nothing really out of the ordinary. But if you took this to a skilled luthier, you would be amazed what a really good level crown job can do. I had a spotlight special that I thought the frets were toast on, and that guy did a level recrown job and they were like brand new. So no, you definitely don't have to refret this. Honestly, you can keep playing it just as it is right now, but if you're really picky about your setups, you might consider the level recrown. Onto the face of the guitar. I love this finish because it doesn't really show polish scratches and swirls. I mean, I'm sure they're there if we get them in the light just right, but all you have is a few light nicks and dings on the top of this guitar. It's definitely in a very clean condition. There you can see a small impression. I mean, it's not perfect, but this is definitely the cleanest charcoal metallic that I have ever seen. But this one, the only thing to know is the switch tip has been replaced. I believe it would have originally been a cream color. This is definitely a modern plastic switch tip. The shape just isn't right for a mid-80s. And this speed knob has been replaced. Now you're probably gonna ask me, how do I know that? And why aren't these other knobs aged? Around 1985, the plastic knobs just stop aging on Gibson guitars. In the 50s all the way through the early 80s, they all start turning yellow over time. But something happened in the mid-80s. They must have switched suppliers because the plastics just do not age anymore. They stay clear regardless of how much smoke that they've seen. But the way you can tell they are original is look at the font. The font for the numbers is much more bold in print and white. That's how you identify a late 80s speed knob. This one, look at it. The font is completely different. And if that's not enough for you, it does come off fairly easily. So that's something to know about. I find if you line the 10s up with the other ones though, it goes back on pretty easily too. So this isn't gonna fall off on you while you're playing, but if you tug on it, it will come off. You've got your original untouched Tim Shaw PAFs, original electronics, original bridge, tailpiece. Everything else about this guitar, nothing to worry about. Back of the headstock, our serial number 819-66543, made in USA. Got our stock Grover tuners. And I would say the worst thing condition-wise about this guitar is at the top edges of the headstock, there's a little bit of finish worn through. It likely bumped up against something or rubbed against the case or something. Over the years, it just caused that. Now the other thing with this finish is it is highly prone to finish checking. Most examples you see, they have it all over the neck, running up and down. You'll see it all over the back of the guitar, all over the face of the guitar. This one is actually very clean. You do have a little bit of finish checking right here where a stand would be. It kind of plays peekaboo. I'm not sure when you'll be able to see it, but I'll throw some photos up so you can see it. And I'm sure there's other minor instances of that on this guitar at high stress areas, but there are no breaks, cracks, or repairs. It has a very 60s slim neck profile to it. Two areas of note is right here. You've got two impression marks. It's a little bit of a shame, but other than that, the neck is clean. However, under Blacklight right here, you can see there's a little bit of clear coat worn through. Just very slightly, though. Back of the guitar presents very well. Get it in the light, you can see there is some buckle worming marks and other indentations. And there's quite a few scratches on the back control plate. But none of that really matters because it still looks good from far away like this. There's nothing that actually broke the finish anywhere. Sides of the guitar, you've got a very similar thing going on, just some light impressions, a few light nicks and dings, but you would be hard pressed to find another one of these in better shape. This is kind of a finish as a collector you have to roll with the punches a little bit because maybe one or two of these show up every year, and of those they typically have a Kahler on them or some other major form of wear. So a clean one, it's just unheard of. And it's been something I've been looking for about 7 years now. Now we'll do a blacklight test. As you can see, everything's glowing the way I would want to see on the face of the guitar. You can see you've got a little bit more of a glow right here because of somebody's sweaty arm that was on it. The sides are also looking good here. There's not much to go over on this one. Everything finish-wise is intact. And that's one of the main qualifiers for this guitar for me. Even as a dealer, I paid quite a bit for this guitar simply because I wanted to document such a very nice example. You can see there's no major areas of wear on the neck, and there are no breaks, cracks, or repairs to the headstock. The face is also looking good here. This guitar retains its original Gibson Generation 3 chainsaw case. A chainsaw case with a gunmetal gray guitar. It's a very manly sounding combination. You've got all the metal latches still intact. You've got 3 of them. You've got some wear to the Gibson logo on the outside of the case, but it still functions the way it should. And you have a beautiful blue interior on this one. Nothing really major to go over on this case. It's perfectly functional. Well, I guess there is one thing. Blah! If you think you might be interested in adding this gunmetal gray charcoal metallic Les Paul custom to your collection, feel free to contact me on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Troglys, Troglys. If I was building a personal collection right now, I would not be selling this guitar. So definitely take advantage of this one being for sale the way it is. Take care.